INDOTEL is the government in Dominican Republic, and it stands for the Dominican Institute for Telecommunications. And it's a government organization, so this is kind of a big deal. They've created an R&D LAB, which is basically an incubator or early stage startup acceleration program to shine the light and make a big call to the Dominican public and their class of young, hungry tech entrepreneurs. And the ultimate goal is to culminate in this big congress, right? It's called the International Congress of INDOTEL 2.0 at one of the most famous hotels here in Dominican Republic called Hotel Jaragua here in Santo Domingo, where I live. And the ultimate goal at the end of the program is not only to call the biggest and best talent in the tech ecosystem that can, by positive consequence, positively impact the telecommunications sector, but also to highlight on the international stage Dominican tech innovation, Dominican tech talent. It exists here and it's developing. The thing that INDOTEL is doing different is absolutely nothing. You know why? Because there are plenty of accelerators here in the country. But in a country like Dominican Republic, the fact that a government institution is now becoming involved in creating a space and a platform for this kind of community, specifically the startup and the tech and the innovation community, it's a big deal here in Dominican Republic, right? There are other accelerators that exist here in the country, but the fact that INDOTEL is putting their stamp, their social media on it, their brand, their mark, their professionals, their influencers, their president behind it, that's something that's incredible. And they're going to be doing things like providing the marketing models and the finance and all of these things. And these are lessons that can be learned online. They could be learned at other accelerators in the Dominican Republic or outside the Dominican Republic. That's not new. But what's new is that the government is now officially taking concrete steps to create space for startup founders. I think that the R&D LAB from INDOTEL, they're doing a phenomenal job in terms of becoming a key startup ecosystem partner in the Dominican Republic. And the startup ecosystem is important because the startup ecosystem links investors, talent, startups and their founders, financing, potential partners, government incentives. It links all of these things into an ecosystem and a web that creates optimal conditions to create startups. And INDOTEL has the stuff to do it, while others in the country, and I respect them very much, I've seen them out in market and stuff like that, they're doing a great job of much of the same thing. The fact that INDOTEL has government resources, reach, the kind of brand recognition that's important to Dominicans and others in Latin America and the Caribbean, I think it's a huge deal in the step of really building a robust startup ecosystem that can really take us one step closer to Presidente Abinader's goal of creating Silicon Beach here in Dominican Republic. One of the things that I really like about INDOTEL's R&D LAB is their emphasis on the pitching piece, right? And so when I came in and, I offered my 2 cents and, very casually off the books, off the record, shared my thoughts, it's about what actually makes a pitch that actually wins when you're actually pitching your startup. And what a lot of startup founders tend to do is they go in one of 2 directions, right? They focus on, okay, I'm going to pitch this because it's this great idea, right? And it has all of this potential. Or they go in another direction where they say, I'm going to pitch this because it's a great product. It's a great platform. It's so user-friendly. It's so beautiful. We spent all this time on development. We just need to get to market. And that's not going to get investors excited. That's going to get people excited, right? That's going to get techies excited. Other coders or software developers, it's going to get them excited. But for an investor, a professional venture capital or angel investor, for them to get excited, they need to see your revenue plan. They need to see your revenue model. They need to understand that their money isn't going to go into you developing more product that hasn't been sold or developing more application that hasn't been utilized yet. They want to make sure that you're focused on generating short-term revenue in the beginning, which scales, and then long-term, large sources of recurring revenue in the medium to long term. That's what gets investors. Stop talking so much about the product. Wait for you to get asked about the product, and then I'm sure it's going to be wonderful and amazing. But you really need to focus on the business piece of your startup right after you get out of the, explaining how wonderful your innovation is. I think that after the INDOTEL International Congress, it's going to shape the way that Dominican Republic, the people of Dominican Republic and the entrepreneurial class view startup technology, right? Because entrepreneurship is nothing new here in Dominican Republic. It's been 10 years since Dominican Republic ratified entrepreneurship law into their constitution, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that specific law creates conditions for entrepreneurship, but it's never been segmented specifically for technology, startup, and innovation. They pretend. I'm not gonna lie to you, because I call bullshit on what's bullshit. They can pretend that there is, but there's not been a great segmentation or conditions that are optimal specifically for startup founders. There are lots of resources for small businesses. There are lots of resources for big businesses. There are lots of resources for different industries, but specifically for tech innovation, INDOTEL is gonna definitely shift paradigms in the direction of waking the Dominican public up, waking up those students who have those projects in the universities, waking up those entrepreneurs who are dreaming in front of their laptop and saying, you know, there's a space and there's resources specifically for me, and they're looking for me right now.